Okay, we are live, running a little bit late. It's my fault, y'all. Blame me. But hey, good things come to those who wait. And we're going to let it breathe just for a second or two longer. And then we are officially kicking off this episode.
Right on cue, K Tours 27. Right on cue.
Welcome in. It is the Huddle Up Podcast, presented as always by Mile High Huddle, powered by Blue Wire Podcasts. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zack, it was for the first time that I can recall since the VJ debut season in 2017, the Broncos actually held a press conference to introduce the entire coordinator staff, right? We're talking Justin Outten on offense. We're talking Ajiro Evero on defense, and the very, I don't know, I like him, Dwayne Stukes for special teams. And, there were some really interesting things that we're going to go through here tonight. But, Zack, the coordinator for the offense, Justin Outten, here's what he said about Drew Lock. And shout out, by the way, to Darren McKee, DMAC of 104.3 The Fan, who was the only one in the room that kind of had the either presence of mind, Zach, or the stones to bring up Drew Lock. And he wanted his opinion on Drew. And he said, quote, after he rambled on about a quarterback room in Atlanta, a quarterback room in Green Bay, then he said, quote, as far as Drew, he's got a powerful arm. He's done a really good job as far as using his legs and being an athlete. As far as that, I want to see how he fits in the system a little bit more once he gets the playbook under him, and then we'll go from there. Close quote. So, Zach, on the surface, pretty innocuous, but is there anything more that you might take from that?
He's saying the obvious. Same thing that Clint Kubiak said when he was first able to discuss Drew Lock after coming to the Broncos quarterbacks coach. He mentioned his arm, his athleticism, and his physical traits. It's never been about those things, though. But what else is he going to say? It's a good start for that relationship. But later on, Outten also talked and stressed the importance of taking care of the football and how key that is, avoiding turnovers. So there's a lot of overreaction whenever Locke is mentioned directly or indirectly, and it goes one way or the other. Pro Drew Lock fans always take it as super optimistic, as a sign that he's going to be able to get the starting job this season. Drew Lock haters take it as a sign like it's just coach speak and they're not referencing his mental issues, processing, avoiding turnovers, things like that, the real downfalls to his game. So it's a good start once again, but he has to prove it on the field, same as any other season, Chad. And if he gets that opportunity, it's still going to be an uphill battle.
What I have taken so far, we heard from Clint Kubiak, his new position coach, Locks, and then now we've heard from Justin Outten. We haven't heard from the actual head coach and the guy that's going to be calling the plays, Nathaniel Hackett, on the subject. But what I take away from what we've heard so far, honestly, these guys are not planning on Drew Lock being their plan at quarterback. Everything they have said, now he might be their default, don't have really much more of an option plan. He's their contingency, I guess, for lack of a better term. But they have really, both Kubiak and Outten, very carefully chose their words, very carefully made sure that they complimented him on the things everyone can see. If you got two eyes, you can see Drew Lock's got a big arm, and you can see that he's an athlete. All right, cool. So they took care of that. They checked those boxes so that no one could read into, say, oh, they don't like him. But they were very, very careful, Zach, to not say anything that would hint at, imply at, could be interpreted in any way, shape, or form as Drew Lock being the plan at quarterback, or Drew Lock having a future in this scheme, or Drew Lock having a future with this coaching staff on this roster moving forward. Now, he's the only quarterback currently under contract, so that's kind of all they got right now, but very circumspect, very cagey, kind of choosing what they say with great care.
You could have read this, and I like the intro pressers, but you could have pretty much read the script right off Patrick Smythe's MacBook, Chad. It was a bunch of talking points, a bunch of PR bullet points. I think they mentioned collaborative like 4 or 5 times. You can tell that George Peyton and Patrick Smythe and the Broncos PR team wanted to craft a certain message. And like you said, they were very careful. They tiptoed around certain subjects. They avoided talking about Aaron because that would have been tampering since he's still under contract with a different team. So I had no qualms with these intro pressers, but you can tell it was very carefully manicured. Off the top, from the gut, from the heart, I'm not sure about that.
I mean, it is what it is. And by the way, thank you, Dylan, for keeping everybody in the know, to smash the like button. Hey, sometimes we run a little bit late on this podcast, but we always bring the thunder, and we never, I don't like using double negatives. I almost said we never don't show up. That would be terrible grammar. My grandmother would be furious. We always show up for you. All right. We might be a few minutes late, but we always show up for you. Jacob, you are rapidly becoming a legend in this community. I think it's time we send you a t-shirt, my dog, as a small thank you for all that you do for us here at the Huddle Up Podcast and Mile High Huddle, all the podcasts, for what that's worth. So why don't you send us an email, milehighhuddle@gmail.com, give us your shipping address and your t-shirt size, and we will shoot you out a little care package as a small token of our appreciation for everything, my friend. Colton Moore jumping in. Appreciate that super chat, Colton. He says, thank you for the retweet yesterday. Love you guys. Hey, we keep the conversation going, Zach. I mean, we love talking with you guys here in real time, but Twitter is just another opportunity for us to keep that going.
Yeah, I've been guilty of not being a big retweeter in the past, but I always, whenever anyone tags us, like Bryce tagging us about stories, Michael Ronquillo tagging us after the show, I always like to retweet and give you guys back the love. It's the least that I can do for how supportive y'all are, so thank you.
Rodney Garcia, also tremendously consistent in supporting us, helping to keep these lights on. Thank you, my friend. He says, good evening, guys, and Broncos country. I was watching the press conference yesterday and really stoked about Evero's role with our defense. Please bring back Josie Jewell and Kenny Young. Draft a stud edge rusher. Go Broncos. Yeah, Evero, very interesting coach. All three of those guys. I mean, honestly, if I'm being very frank and earnest, nothing about Justin Outten up to this point has really excited me or made me sit up in my chair and go, ooh, yeah. He said a couple of things, Zach, about, it's all about the ball and all stuff like that. But he said something that smacked a little too much of Pat Shurmur for me about we want to end every drive with a kick. And I get it. Look, the NFL coaching circle has cliches that get used everywhere. There's certain things that are going to get used everywhere, and that's one of them. So I'm not going to read too much into it. But he's kind of a very, just kind of plain in terms of how he presents himself, kind of boring, but eloquent. I like that he can slap some words together. And, he was very, you could tell, Zach, sincere and earnest when he talked about his experience as a prep coach, as a high school coach, which required not only being, equal parts teacher / coach, but being a father figure, looking out for kids. Hey, making sure these kids are actually, do they have a roof over their head? Do they have food in their bellies and whatnot? And that was really cool. But I'm rambling a little here. Edgero, very exciting. Obviously sharp, smart as a whip. And Dwayne Stukes, man, he's just got a little bit of sass to him, which I like. He's got a little bit of, vibe, a little bit of Derek Wolfian, don't ever F with us type of juice.
And what's interesting, he called himself a bit of an introvert. So it's funny that you'd pick up on something like that. I do like Stukes. I love what Evero said. And, you talk about speaking from the heart and something that would grab your attention. One of my biggest complaints about the Fangio defense, and there were quite a few, he wasn't this guru as people paint him out to be. They never seem to blitz, especially when times where they really should have gotten after the quarterback a little more. So I love what Evero said. He goes, if you don't get there with 4, you send 5. You don't get there with 5, you send 6. I love that mentality. It harkens right back to Wade Phillips. That we're going to come after you. We're going to play fast and aggressive. We're going to wreak havoc, and we're going to be the A-word, Chad, active, like we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. I love that from Evero. I get the same vibe you do about Outten, though, and I'll fill in the blanks for you. Very Teddy Bridgewater-ish. He said he doesn't really watch TVs or movies or whatever, and even it was Nathaniel Hackett that helped transition Justin Outten away from the written word and into the electronic world with tablets and Excel and PDFs and stuff like that. That reminded me of when Pat Shurmur famously preached about using a pencil And we all know that Pat Shurmur was very much a pencil-using coach. But at least he, Justin Allen wasn't preaching the importance of actually practicing for incompletions like Pat Shurmur did. So anything is a step up from the last regime. And I love what Nathaniel Hackett said in his brief remarks before he introduced his coordinators. He goes about Evero and Stooks. These guys just had to go win a Super Bowl. The excitement and energy he brings to the room is palpable, and I could not be happier with the new coaching staff.
Shout out to Bigger and shout out to Todd Ostendorf. Appreciate you guys being with us. Kevin Vinn in the house as well with a very generous super chat. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
And good evening to you as well. Ren99, what's good? Been a minute. Long time super chat superstar here at Mile High Huddle. I've missed you, my dog. Where have you been? He says, I'm definitely excited to see what happens this offseason with the whole QB situation and the draft, and I can't wait till next season to see how things go. Well, it's really weird, man. We had Mike Kliss to open this week, Zach, kind of get people's hopes up by saying, you know what, something tells me we're going to get a decision from Aaron Rodgers this week. And then, of course, he had his appearance on the Pat McAfee show, his semi-regular appearance, I guess regular appearance. And everyone's like, ooh, is this where he's going to? No. And that was preceded, of course, by the news last week, Zach, the TMZ type news that he had called off the engagement or broken up with his what is her, Shailene? I always forget that woman's name. Anyway, yeah. And then all right, nothing happens. Oh, one other little breadcrumb on the trail here, Zach. His enigmatic, cryptic Instagram post that everyone's reading into about why he's missing in between Adams and Cobb and all this stuff. And Aaron Rodgers, dude. Crapper, get off the pot. Let's frickin' go.
Yeah, I really like the guy a lot. I would love for the Broncos to trade for him, but man, he is like a teenager on Instagram. Like, he just loves the drama. He loves creating the mystique and kind of playing and toying with people's emotions and decisions. And we've all been there, I think, where Aaron was. It seemed like he was a little faded and on Instagram kind of getting into his feels about his ex, Chad. He mentioned that he was a back-to-back MVP with Woodley by his side. Then there was a report that someone, a sleuth out there, said that they could hear Woodley laughing in the background of a Rodgers interview after the supposed breakup. So we don't really know what's going on with them two. The Pat McAfee appearance was all hype and nothing on the delivery. He said, no decision yet in my future. I still think he's either retiring or staying in Green Bay, but that's just my opinion on that. But regardless, though, whoever they get at quarterback is going to be an upgrade on Teddy Bridgewater. The coaching staff more than likely will be a giant upgrade on the last coaching staff. And George Peyton hit it out of the ballpark with his first draft, and I'm really, really excited what he can do wherever he goes with whatever draft picks he has this coming April in his second draft class. So optimism is high in Broncos country, and I feel like it's warranted.
Big T, Travis Weber in the house. Thank you, buddy. He says, good evening, Chad, Zach, Broncos country. Of course, they will talk up Locke when at the moment. That's who we've got at QB1. What's all the noise about getting Denver to trade for Trey Lance? Doesn't make sense that San Fran would trade him when Jimmy G is out the door. Well, he's only out the door after this season. So Jimmy G has led, how many years has he been there now, Zach? 4? Was this his 4th season? I believe say?
4 too many, yeah.
So 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So Shanahan, 5 years in San Fran. I'm pretty sure 4. Anyway, 2 of those seasons, when he's been available for his team, he's led them to the Super Bowl in one, to the conference title game in the other. I mean, you got to be careful what you wish for. Now, look, this is not, we were just talking about Joe Montana and Steve Young in the green room before we went live here, Scott, myself, and Zach, and this is not that situation. If you're the San Francisco 49ers, like you've maybe the 2 in the bush was a little bit more interesting after you went out and won 4 Super Bowls with Joe Montana or whatever, because Steve Young was quite a little bit more proven of a commodity in terms of his stops, and he'd been with Bill Walsh, and he'd been in the Niners' bosom for so long that they were much more certain in terms of what they had in Steve Young, so they could say goodbye to Joe Montana, and they turned out to be right, and they go and win a Super Bowl with Mike Shanahan as their offensive coordinator and Gary Kubiak as the position coach, coaching the quarterbacks. This is not that situation. So if I'm the Niners, I got to be careful just willy-nilly, Zach, dismissing Jimmy G, because when he's been available, this team is a force to be reckoned with. Now, Trey Lance, all the upside in the world, very raw. I'd be a lot more interested in him coming to Denver, obviously, Zach, than Jimmy G, but I really don't think either one of those options right now, if I'm the Niners, is in my best interest. Like, I'm going to go ahead and run it back with Jimmy G one last time because I can, knowing that if he stays healthy, we're going to be in the conversation.
Bushes and bosoms, Chad. This podcast is verging on sacrilege. I don't know why they would trade up for Trey Lance and take him in that spot only to trade him a year later after never giving him an opportunity to start. So he's going to be the starter one way or the other in San Francisco. I feel like that was always the plan, and Jimmy G literally choked away his firm grip on the starting job there. I read today, though, I think it was Schefter who reported it's not a lock that Jimmy G is dealt, even though I think he will be either cut or traded. Trey Lance is the future there. And I fancy myself quite the news hound. I haven't seen all this noise about Trey Lance and the Broncos. I think it's like a fan creation or a media like what if scenario, and I think it's based on Tom Brady unretiring and then going to San Francisco. I feel like that's a long shot too. So Trey Lance isn't coming to Denver. Jimmy G is a possibility on paper, but I don't want anything to do with him at all. I feel like I'd rather gamble on Drew Lock, save my money, save my draft picks, than take on Jimmy G and hope for the best with him.
Shout out to Chase Wellner. Shout out to CJ Morris. Thank you for the stars, man. Appreciate that. You know, Tom Brady, it's crazy to think he's going to come back and then want to go play for the Niners, but there is one thing that might tie him there, and that's the fact that he grew up a massive Niners fan. In fact, he was in the stadium for the catch, for that Montana rollout right, the beginning of the dynasty that became the Walsh era, Montana era Niners. Tom Brady was actually in the stands for that phenomenal game in which they finally got over the hump and vanquished the Dallas Cowboys, who had been the Niners' nemesis in the NFC up to that point. Slide and glide, bros. Yeah.
Real quick about that, if he would unretire, he would potentially become, and he would do the one thing, Chad, he's never done before, and one thing that no other player has done in league history, that is win a Super Bowl with 3 different teams.
That he only signed a 2-year in Tampa, right?
They still control his rights, but I feel like if he wants out, they'll trade him and try to recoup some draft picks for him. I feel like they've already kind of mentally moved on from Tom Brady. That team is kind of breaking apart. So I just feel like he's a very driven and motivated person. I feel like he's a little more self-consumed than people make him out to be, or that he wants to believe in. That would be his motivation if he were to unretire. But apparently he's a movie producer now and an actor. He's making a movie about the 28-3 Super Bowl. I know. Cover your ears, Scott, down there. Yeah. Apparently he's going to act in it too, and he's producing it. It's really happening. It's being filmed this spring, so that should be interesting.
No kidding. Yeah. Real quick here. Tom Brady signed a 2-year deal. Did he? And then he signed an extension, I think. Yes. I'm trying to refresh my memory here. So Tom Brady, let's see. Tom Brady, this is from Spot Track. Brady signed a 1-year, $25 million contract with the Bucs, including $20 million signing bonus and an average, blah, blah, blah. In 2022, Brady would earn a base salary of $9 million. So, yeah, they own his rights for the next several years. He would have to be traded, which, as you said, you know, he's Tom the GOAT. He could probably force his way out of anywhere. Slide and glide, bros. Thanks for your patience, my friend. He says, Dwayne Stukes got that fire energy. Love that. He does, man. And I noticed too, Zach, during his presser, you know, it's almost like he gets in a rhythm when he's talking and he's used to addressing a room. And so he uses a lot of affirmatives to make sure people are paying attention to him like this. So I'd be like, if I'm Dwayne Stukes, I'm going to say, so, you know, we want to really prioritize guys who feel like special teams is really important, right? And then it's like, hey, we're sitting here in the media room. We're like, you don't need our affirmative, but he does that, and it gets you nodding your head. You're like, yeah, right. Wait a minute. What am I doing here? Right? He's one of those guys, and it was actually, I don't know. He just had some juice, dude, and I'm really intrigued to see if that forgettable doldrum caliber third face finally turns a corner.
At least he wasn't up there apologizing for how he can't do his job like his predecessor, Chad. I do like what Stukes said. He said, I'm not going to talk about why the last regime or last system didn't work. So I do like the humility he showed there. He seems like a very confident person, a confident coach, a confident man. I don't see how anyone could be worse than Tom McMahon, but I do feel like they'll be in better hands with Dwayne Stukes.
Rodney Garcia says, I hope Evero can figure out Mahomes like Fangio did. For some reason, Mahomes always struggled against Fangio, Fangio's defense. Let's get him. Get it. I'm excited. Yeah, he's worked. And by the way, Dan, thank you for the stars. Really appreciate that. Evero's worked for a lot of the league's top guys. I mean, from coordinators, from Vic to Wade Phillips to Raheem Morris. Morris has a lot of bona fides, former head coach as well. There's one more I'm missing. Was it Capers? No. Anyway, he's got some real experience with some of the top brass, defensive brass of the last couple decades in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, you would think you could take a look at scheme-wise, and thankfully, you got Justin Simmons there too, to sit down with Evero and be like, all right, when you guys game plan for the Chiefs, let's talk about some of the principles that Fangio was keen on, and let's figure out maybe how to weave some of that, because it wasn't obviously as effective as you think because the Chiefs won every game. So let's figure out how to weave some of that into what we're doing here. If you can somehow, Zach, master the coverage component, meaning that, guys are staying with their guys or they're confounding the quarterback from a read perspective with sophisticated zones and stuff like that, and get a rush on him, that's the secret to Mahomes. It can't just be coverage because he'll just run around on you. You got to be able to walk that razor's edge of being able to do both, and easier said than done.
Watch the second half of the AFC title game, what Cincinnati did. They played good coverage, but they sent pressure and got after Mahomes when they had to. And you can rattle him. He melts down nowadays, Chad, the 2021 version anyway. He was prone to just the disaster. So I love whatever he was bringing to the table. And smartly, though, he's staying in a base 3-4, even though the team plays a ton of nickel. He's going to retain a lot of the components from the Vic Fangio scheme because, as you mentioned, he coached alongside him or from that system, from that same tree. But he's going to bring pressure and be more aggressive and hopefully create and coax turnovers out of every level of the defense. And I understand the apprehension because he's a first-time DC. He's a younger coach on a young staff and they're very inexperienced. But he has talent at every level. And if you agree that it's a players-driven business, I think coaching has a lot to do with it too. But the front seven, Draymond, Shelby, the linebacking core, you talk about bringing back Josie Jewell, you still have Baron Browning, maybe bring back Kenny Young. And the secondary, of course, Simmons, you have PS2, you have Darby, Caden Stearns. There are a lot of pieces already in place on this defense. They need a coach that half and half, keeping the Fangio components that worked in the playbook while also enhancing on them, improving on them, coaching them to be more aggressive, blitz more, sack more, create more takeaways. I think if you get that combination going, they're going to be scary.
Nash V with a super chat. That's a newer name. So welcome. Thank you. Connect with us on Twitter so that we can keep the conversation going. All right. He says, hey, fellas, longtime viewer, first time donator. Appreciate that, my friend. As much as I love Rodgers, I'd prefer the Broncos to play the long game and get a young quarterback. Reliving another post-Manning era has me nervous. Understandably so, right? Because, what came after was like really high. It's very manic. Highs that you didn't think were possible, and then lows followed by lows that you didn't think were possible. So I totally understand that, but all things being equal, if you can get a quarterback that is basically it's a virtual guarantee you'll be in the playoffs, even if it's only a 3-year stretch. There, you do it. You pull that trigger, and who knows? Maybe Aaron Rodgers goes on to play. How old is Brady? Was he 43 or 44 when he retired?
I think he's 45 almost. I think he's 45 in August, so 44.
My dude is older than me. So, who knows? You maybe err on the or you at least hold out hope, Zach, that maybe Rodgers, who, as long as you keep that clavicle healthy, that's the thing you always got to worry about with A-Rod, is he's managed to actually be quite the Iron Man and stay healthy, and he's pretty savvy in terms of protecting himself and avoiding big collisions. But similar to that Drew Lock hit, guys, that injured him in week 2, the blindside hit from Bud Dupree in Pittsburgh, where he came down hard on his clavicle. Aaron's busted that so many times. couple times anyway, fractured it to where that's the only thing that worries me availability-wise. But if he's on your roster, Zach, you're going to the frickin' playoffs. It's a matter of how long will he play.
Yeah, shout out to Eli Wilkinson once again for blowing that block. The thing is, reliving the any post-Peyton Manning year, I agree with you. No one wants to do that for another season. No one wants another Teddy or Case Keenum, Joe Flacco situation. But I feel like, and this is my opinion, that would only occur if it's a Garoppolo, Wentz, Cousins, Matt Ryan scenario. If you get Aaron Rodgers, you're better than you were in Peyton Manning's final year. Maybe the defense isn't as good, but the offense will be so much better because Aaron Rodgers is like 3 cuts above anything below him, any other quarterback I just mentioned. You get Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, you're not just a playoff contender, you are a Super Bowl contender with the pieces they already have on this roster. We talked about the defense already. We all know about the offense. Aaron takes this team from 7 wins to 12 or 13 by his sheer presence alone. That's how good it would be.
So it just comes down to the question of what's that worth? Or really, what does Green Bay price that at? And is that worth it to you for that, what Zach just laid out? Shout out over here to Dave up north of the 49th parallel. Good to have you in the room, my friend. Appreciate you being a part of this community. Really good to see you. Stick around. Keep contributing to the conversation, my friend. Rodney Garcia, I agree. Broncos country doesn't have time for that drama with Rodgers. What has he done? I get it. Back-to-back MVP, playoff appearances, but hasn't gotten to the Super Bowl since, 2010? I may be wrong. Just throwing my opinion out there. Stick with Locke and draft a Q for future development with Hackett. Well, I mean, it's like manna from heaven right now. For if you're the Broncos, I mean, even sniffing the playoffs would be a quantum leap forward for this team. So I don't want to dismiss Aaron Rodgers out of hand. Look, Peyton Manning for the longest time was known as the QB who was the Star Wars guy that couldn't win the big one. And then he finally won the big one. And then he ended up kind of crashing back down to earth in a very specific sense of not winning multiple titles, couldn't get back over the hump, and yet continued to just throw down, stack the statistics, stack the accolades, stack the Pro Bowls, MVPs. And he kind of became known as that the same way you just kind of talked about A-Rod, is how most people thought about Peyton Manning circa 2012. Maybe circa 2011, going into that season where no one really knew just how bad his neck was. And then he ended up missing that whole 2011 season for the Colts, his last year as a Colt. But he ended up obviously being reinvigorated, energized by what the Broncos were doing as an organization at the time, the collection of talent and coaches that were here. And Zach, even though a lot of those guys are gone, in fact, most of them are, there's something about this franchise. I mean, I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it Outten? It was Outten who really genuflected to the Denver Broncos yesterday by saying, what a dream come true to work for a team like the Broncos, one of the premier organizations in the NFL. It's true. The Broncos, they have juice. They have juice. And they have, we don't just say this because you're in our community. The Denver Bronco fan base is renowned. All right. As someone who also, I also published the Colts site for Sports Illustrated Fan Nation. And look, the Colts, small market team, just like the Broncos are considered a small market team. But Zach, the level of interest and fan passion and excitement in the Colts compared to the Broncos, you can't even compare it. Trust me. I mean, I see it in the social media interactions, the traffic, the people clicking on links, people caring about what's going on with their team in the middle of the offseason. Bronco fans are like geeked out about every living detail possible. Colts fans are like, wake me up when it's football season. And, that trickles out. Coaches feel that, and so anyway, this is a long-winded way of me saying that I think coming to Denver, if it were to happen, and it's still such a long shot, guys, all it takes is Aaron standing up to the mic or sending out a tweet or getting on Instagram, Zach, and saying, decided I'm coming back to Green Bay, let's go. And this whole thing blows over and it winks out of existence.
Oh, I brought this comment back on the screen because Rodney says, what has he done? And then he mentions right after that what he's done. Back-to-back MVPs, playoff appearances. That's pretty good, number one. Hasn't gotten the Super Bowl since 2010. The Broncos haven't made the playoffs since 2015. They haven't had a winning record since 2016. I agree with you, Rodney. If you can't get Aaron, you can't get Russell Wilson, you can't get a quarterback of that caliber, then roll with Drew Lock or draft a young quarterback, take that route, try that route, commit to that route. But if you have a chance to get Aaron freaking Rodgers on this team, reuniting with two of his former coaches with the talent they have and the win now roster they have, despite what many believe, you got to take that chance. You have to swing for that fence.
By the way, love you, Rodney. We are trying to get over the hump to hit goal. We're pretty close to hitting our 250,000 star goal on Facebook in the month of February. And of course, when we hit that goal, we're raffling off a Broncos jersey of the winner's choosing. And the only people in the running for that are those who contributed to the goal. And I can tell you who's going to have the most tickets in that hat when the time comes. And we are going to hit the goal. Michael Ronquillo is going to be at the very, very top. He has been throwing down like a boss. Jacob Foster is going to have a lot of tickets. Mark Schrader, Tim Hoffman, Travis Tarbox, a.k.a. T Twice, Rodney Garcia. Maybe I'll call you Rodney RG. I don't know. Pete Middleton, Lawrence Rivera, Miguel Santisteban, Andrew Baker round out the top 10. So keep it coming. We're going to hit the goal. Michael's saying we hit the goal. Did we hit the goal already, Scott? It's not showing on Facebook on my side. I'm pretty confident we'll hit it tonight either way. So much love, Michael. And you've been a big impetus for that, my friend. Really appreciate that. Ron Galiccio, thank you for that super sticker. Very, very kind of you. Appreciate that support, my friend. Very cute pictures. That must be your boy. Mike Reno says, and it's great to see you, my friend. Hello, Chad and Zach. Great pod. Thank you. I think the coach speak about Locke is more so about getting the fans ready for not having Rodgers on the team in 22. What do y'all think? Well, here's the thing. They really haven't said anything about Drew Lock unless they've been like strong-armed to say it, like put on the spot. And when they have been put on the spot and there's no escape, it's what do you say? What do you say? He's got a big arm and he's an athlete. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how. That's all they can do right now because they have these irons in the fire. The whole offseason plan of attack, Zach, is in limbo until the first domino, which is Aaron Rodgers for this team, for the Broncos, falls. Either way, if Aaron says, I'm out, I'm retiring, domino falls, and that creates a cascade towards multiple potential eventualities. If he says, hey, I'm coming back, Green Bay, let's go, same thing, dominoes start falling. If he says, I'm coming back, but miss me on being a Packer anymore, hey, trade me to Denver. Now you got something really interesting that could be happening in Denver. But if he doesn't come to Denver, Zach, you're still going to have to figure out how to fry these fish. You're still going to have to figure out how to get out there under this exciting, young / inexperienced coaching staff and get the job done. And so they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback. We'll see.
Well, I'm going to sound like a Colts fan right now. Wake me up when any one of these guys talks about Drew Lock's mental processing, for example, or his decision making. That would grab my attention, not just giving the same talking points, the obvious ones about Drew that were never contested, his arm strength and his athleticism. But I don't think anyone from Hackett to Outten to George Peyton have a defeatist attitude. And by sending that sort of message that says, we're not getting Aaron, there's no way he's going to come play for us, they're going to keep hope alive and kind of toe that line and play both sides until they can't anymore. And Aaron hasn't even decided, or at least made that announcement public. The Packers don't know what Rodgers is going to do, and the Broncos are held hostage by that same virtue. So I don't think they've decided anything. I think they've acknowledged, though, that in a worst-case scenario, quote-unquote worst case, Drew Lock would be the fallback plan. And that's not, again, a bad fallback to have.
I mean, we're just at this stage. We have no choice but to kind of read between the lines. George Payton made the Drew Lock thing a part of the interviews. We know that. Hey, what's your take on Drew? A, B, what would your plan be to get the most out of him? But of course he's going to say that. He's the only quarter. I'm going to be the skeptic here, the devil's advocate. Of course he's going to say that. He's the only quarterback they have under contract. That doesn't, on its face or by itself, imply any kind of plan that George Payton might have for Drew Lock. And I'm more inclined to kind of lean toward that side of things than, we need to know what your thought is on Drew because he's our guy. It's definitely not that. But they're still, I think, Peyton maintaining an open posture in terms of if and when we get Drew Lock teamed up with these coaches, and if and when we do have to turn to him, we need him to be better. We need him to, what can we do to make him the guy we wanted him to be in the first place when the Broncos drafted him in the second round? That's all this is at this point, but we're going to cover it. That's what we do here, not only on these podcasts, but in the articles we write. We're going to cover every angle, especially, Zach, as it applies to the quarterback position.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think you laid it out pretty good. And I think Peyton's doing a nice job, and the coaches are, as quickly as they've come in as well, of walking that line, of keeping open the possibility of getting Aaron Rodgers or another high-profile quarterback while, saying the right things, the obvious things, but the right things about Drew Lock and keeping him in their back pocket. So it's a tough line to walk, but I think they're walking it pretty well right now.
Rodney says, can we change Deontay Spencer as punt returner? Who would you guys want back there?
Anyone else?
Yeah, it's time to turn that. It really is time to turn that page. He was kind of avatar, Zach, of Tom McMahon, and I think Vic had for whatever reason, a soft spot for Deontay Spencer, but they might bring him in and let him compete and see what's what. Let these coaches kind of, Stukes and his boys figure out what's what on him. But he was here for 3 years. He had one kick return for a touchdown and just a lot of kind of inconsistency. There was never really a consistent threat or spark on a punt return or a kick return. So in other words, guys, aside from, for the most part, being trustworthy to field the punt, I mean, he wasn't like, the kid, Isaiah McKenzie, fumbling left and right, but he had a couple of faux pas. Aside from securing the catch, he didn't really bring anything to the table for this team that they couldn't replace. It's replacement level returner ability, and it's not an easy job. It's might look easy when you see all the moving parts. It might look easier than it is when you factor in 22 guys on the field at the same time, and they're all doing different things and flying around and trying to kill each other. But catching a ball, Zach, that goes way, way, way up, and then you got people barreling down on you, and the pressure of that, it's pretty intense. It takes a certain kind of cat to be able to do that with consistency, and then to be able to kind of shrug that off like, all right, that's done. Let me take this to the house and be Devin Hester. It's a rare breed that can be able to do that, but they got to find someone that gets them a little bit closer to the Hester model than the Spencer model. You
hit on two guys that I'm going to bring up specifically because a lot of fans and obviously the coaching staff made Deontay Spencer out to be like he was Devin Hester or Dante Hall when he was the furthest thing from that. I'd be more willing and prone to throw some money at Isaiah McKenzie, who we talked about a couple pods ago. I think he's going to be a free agent. I don't know if he'll come back to Denver, but he's explosive. He's turned out to be a really useful weapon in the NFL. At least he was with Buffalo. I would look at maybe some of the Rams guys that are coming out and hitting the open market as well. So a guy that has punt return experience that can reunite with Dwayne Stukes, but maybe KJ Hamler using his speed if he comes back fully healthy. I mean, it's really a dime a dozen job. A sure-handed guy is nice, but a guy that can get some yards and help out the offense, that's even nicer. So you can find that guy pretty much anywhere.
Twice as nice. Claude Riley, what's up, big dog? Appreciate you. Purely hypothetical here, says Claude, but what if Tom Brady came out of retirement and was traded to Denver where he'd have a slew of weapons and could win a Super Bowl as the QB of the team that often got the better of him? Man, that'd be a fun thing to watch. Go Broncos. Yeah, I mean, and maybe in some like fringe-esque alternate Earth timeline that happens, but Tom struggled to beat Denver all the way through the Shanahan time period. Then he ended up getting kind of the best of Denver for about a 3-year window between Shanahan and Peyton Manning coming here. And then Peyton came here, and outside of a loss in Foxborough, Broncos had his number. But then after Peyton retired, it went back to, a long stretch of anytime Tom drew the Broncos, chalk it up as an easy dub on the board. Travis, appreciate you, my friend. Really, we do. And yeah, it's an exciting, hopeful offseason. We're going to be here to break the whole thing down with y'all. Phil says, assuming we have a number 9 overall pick, who do you think we pick? Great show. Thank you, brother. What's your answer for Phil?
The Broncos have specifically mentioned edge a lot. George Payton has. It's been an acknowledged need on Denver's part. I don't think there's much hope remaining for Bradley Chubb in his 5th year. Whatever they get out of him will be the cherry on top. They really have to look long and hard at an outside linebacker, edge guy, defensive end, however you want to classify him. They need some guy that can create pressure, and the pressure that, especially after what Evero said about sending 5 or 6 guys, the pressure they want to bring to opposing offenses. Now, if they don't go edge, I'm looking at a tackle. I'm just saying, throwing it out there, maintaining the possibility, if they fall in love in the pre-draft process with a quarterback, that's an obvious need. If you don't have Aaron Rodgers on your roster, if you're not sold on Drew Lock. So the 3 biggest needs far and away are edge, tackle, and quarterback. Any combination of those.
I think first things first is once that first domino falls, it's going to be let's exhaust the quarterback class and decide whether or not one of these guys we need to make a play for. Andrew, hang tight 1 second. I'm going to grab you, buddy. I want to bring your guys' attention here to a great article Eric Trickle wrote, breaking down the 8 prospects, QB prospects heading to the combine, and basically what questions these quarterbacks need to answer in order to kind of be in the running for the Broncos, both at pick 9 and in a couple of the cases, maybe a little bit later on in the draft. But Malik Willis, and for whatever reason, when I blow up the screen like this, I can't get rid of this top bar. So you guys just bear with that bar just going right through. But Malik Willis, okay, interesting. Go read what Trickle's take is on that. Kenny Pickett, he of the small hand fame. All right, don't sleep on him though. Carson Strong, intriguing young quarterback. Matt Corral, interesting, but can he play in a non-RPO spread scheme? I mean, time will tell. He's got a lot of questions to answer at the combine. Trust on that. Sam Howell of North Carolina, he too, a lot of questions. Hey, dude, you went from being like forced to be reckoned with to you lost a star or 2 on offense, and no longer were you the tide that raised all ships. What the heck happened, Sam? Desmond Ridder, who's very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Round 1, pick 9. No, trade back to the back end of the first round and, take a flyer on him because you get that 5th year, maybe. 2nd round, I'd absolutely consider Desmond Ridder from Cincinnati. Yeah. Very intriguing, dynamic athlete that just needs some refinement. A couple of later in the draft guys, Bailey Zappi of Western Kentucky. Interesting guy. Go read about him. And then this guy has some Caleb Ellaby, man, from Western Michigan. He has some really interesting traits, Zach, that, not perfect size in terms of prototypical NFL, but look, Kyler Murray, Russ Wilson, they've proven that if you have it between the ears and you have some juice as an athlete and as a quarterback, you don't need to be 6'4", 230 pounds to make hay in the NFL. So my first focus is, Zach, to answer that question, what happens when the first domino falls? If Rodgers removes himself from the board, I don't care what other veteran options you're going to pursue, whether it's trade or free agency. I am, as an organization, fully turning my attention to exhausting this quarterback class to determine once and for all, is there one worth our consideration at 9? Is there one worth our consideration with our 4 other top 100 picks? Then everything else kind of matriculates from that.
Yeah, I would have no problem taking a flyer on a Ridder or a Carson Strong in the 2nd round, or if they want to maybe move back up into the late 1st round, if their stocks rise. But I don't see any of these quarterbacks obviously being slam dunks for number 9. A top 10 pick for any of these guys, that's super risky. Maybe, though, I mean, if I had to pick one, Malik Willis would be that guy, considering his dual threat abilities. And I think that's the way the wind's blowing in the NFL. You have to have a quarterback that can create on his own and not just be a pocket passer. So a toolsy guy Malik Willis is. And, people talk about the Broncos needing that veteran bridge if they go for a younger quarterback. Drew Lock is technically a veteran. I mean, he's a 4th-year quarterback, and he's on the final year of his contract. So if he works out, great. If he doesn't, he walks away next year. No harm, no foul, and you still have your young guy. So I'm right there with you. If you can't get Aaron, you can't get Russell Wilson, I'm thinking long and hard about a quarterback in the draft. I don't know when necessarily. I don't know who, but that's the route I'm leaning toward.
If he's not a day 1 upgrade over Drew Lock, then he's off the board in the 1st round. Now, it doesn't have to be a day 1 upgrade in my book to take him in round 2 or round 3, but only guys I perceive as an immediate upgrade over Drew would be in consideration for pick 9. And I'm just not sure, certain. I almost said certain that they're one of those guys exists in this class quite yet. Andrew Baker still flexing, still showing his new Pookie jersey that he won for being an absolute stud last month. Love seeing that. Andrew says Rodgers is on a spiritual, life-changing ride. So that fits. He changes his life to Denver and sits in the mountains with his monk friends. Hashtag MHH for life.
Did you hear about his diet?
No.
He talked about that on the Pat McAfee show. I can't pronounce it. It's some sort of holistic diet. A lot of cleansing in upstairs and downstairs. Put it that way. So, it's talking about getting your throat lubed up and stuff like that. It's not for me necessarily, but credit to Aaron for trying different things. He's an interesting guy for sure.
Panchakarma.
Don't Google it.
The mothership has a piece on this. Sports Illustrated says, after sending Twitter into a frenzy with cryptic Instagram posts, Rodgers appeared on McAfee, and then what began as an inquiry into the reigning MVP's thinking turned into a discussion on the benefits of an alternative cleansing and healing method called Panchakarma. What exactly is it? First, here's Rodgers explaining the 12-day process. There's nothing cryptic about gratitude. I was going through some pictures from last year and felt an intense amount. Oh, that's just shown. Oh, he's got that. He says, quote, I just came out of a 12-day cleanse where you're eating a specific diet and you're going through these treatments every day. You're not really doing anything else. You've got to kind of turn everything else off. You're not working out. You're not straining or anything. It's kind of a recentering. It not only heals you physically, Zach, but I think it takes away mental stress. And then the spiritual part, I think it allows you to kind of enjoy the meditations a little bit more. And then SI goes on to say, Rodgers, coming out of that process, explained that he felt an immense sense of gratitude, blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Panchakarma is associated with Ayurveda, an alternative medicine system rooted in India that dates back thousands of years, per the Ayurvedic Institute. It is more than a mere healing system. It is a science and an art of appropriate living that helps to achieve longevity, targeting diet, living habits, exercise, etc. And yes, it involves getting rid of toxins known as ama, which is, quote, the basic internal cause of all disease. And you know what? There's something to, we'll talk about Hamler, big T twice. Give me just a sec. There's something to that whole concept of, trying to rid your body of toxins. Have you heard of those foot soaks, by the way, Zach, where you put these certain kind of like salt compounds in distilled water, I think it is, and just let your feet chill in it? And it just, my grandparents did it. God rest their souls. They're not with us anymore. But in the years before they left the earth, they did it. And my grandmother told me that it's equal parts disgusting and fascinating because you pull your feet out after however long. I don't even know how long you keep your feet in this thing. And the water is black from all the crap that this compound pulls out of your system. And there's something about, with the karma and the chakras and everything, the feet and the nerve endings in the feet and how that applies to the way the human body functions or whatever. Something about that. It's interesting, but it's also very complicated and kind of left field, kind of like new agey, even though it's thousands of years old as a school of thought.
It's better than putting your feet in that little tank and letting the fish nibble on your skin or whatever. That's a no-go for me for sure. And, you mentioned that you can't work out. You can't do anything on this Panchakarma diet, whatever. Because you can if you're on the toilet constantly. So I give Aaron a ton of credit. I really do. It's not for me, but to each their own.
If he wanted to get over the hump and lead the Packers to another Super Bowl, he'd be at least having some dumbbells while he's on the John, right? I mean, he'd at least be going, chilling. All right. Potty humor in the dust. We're done with that. T Twice says, I'm just curious, any word on KJ Hamler's recovery? No word. So that's good, actually. I mean, you hope it's just a matter of course that he bounces back and is good to go. Jacob throwing down some big boy stars. Thank you so much, bro. Don't forget to send us that email. Want to get you a t-shirt. Claude, you're the man. Appreciate you, my friend. Go Broncos. Indeed. And then we got John Clay eventing. We're at 50 minutes. We got to start winding her down here. Thank you, John. It's great to see you. Appreciate
Thank
that generosity. John says, evening, gents. I think the Green Bay GM news conference today was really telling. Seemed that Gutekunst was floating the idea that we're doing our best in an effort to prepare the fan base that Rodgers might leave. I don't know exactly how they're preparing the fan base, like what that even means, but they're certainly doing everything, pulling out every stop they can to keep him from leaving. I mean, from the purported $45 million a year contract that might be offered to him to, hiring his former quarterbacks coach, Tom Clements, who they won a Super Bowl together. They're trying to keep him in Green Bay. We'll see.
We diagnose every word, every presser of the Broncos. I'm not going to start to do that for the Packers as well. Based on what I saw on Twitter, though, it seemed like your Gutekunst is trying to take a little more of a hardline stance against Aaron or for the team. He mentioned that hypothetically anything can happen with Davante Adams, and if you subscribe to the theory that if they franchise tag or re-sign Davante, then Aaron coming back as a lock, well, that doesn't send the right message in that respect, but it's a lot of PR, a lot of leverage that Gutekunst is trying to maintain, considering that Aaron has dominated the storylines the last couple weeks.
Not only that, but sorry, Brian Gutekunst, you made your bed. Now you're having to lie in it. You're the one that opted to draft Jordan Love in the first round instead of getting Aaron Rodgers while you're still in a window of contention. Help. So, bummer.
He also got bent over a barrel last year because Aaron dictates the terms. He gets to pick whether, if he's playing for Green Bay, if he's playing for another team, he's holding them hostage, and Gutekunst allowed it to happen. So, womp womp.
Andrew Baker says, if no Rodgers, then hashtag let him hate. Most say we know what Drew is, but I don't care. I want to see more of Locke before a mediocre retread. I would too. I mean, instead of going out and whether it's Jameis or Ryan Fitzpatrick or a guy like that, I'd rather see Locke. But I also first want to explore any and every possible avenue to upgrade it because, again, from here on out, whether it's in Denver or somewhere else, Drew Lock is going to have to sing for his supper. He's going to have to earn every opportunity that he gets. And so, hey, he had his window, Zach, of being all right, you showed us enough as a rookie. You got us excited. We're going to go ahead and go all in on you, Drew. No real contest this year, except maybe Jeff Driscoll and Brett Rippon. Then we'll throw in Blake Bortles, who we're never even going to dress in a game later on. But, you're the man. And he couldn't quite make hay. Now, did he have a lot of things going against him that year? Unfortunately, yes. It's bummer that his one shot to be the guy, unfettered shot to be the guy came in the pandemic season under a brand new offensive coordinator. But that's the hand he got dealt, and he just unfortunately wasn't able to make the most of it. So now he gets to sing for his supper. So whoever they bring in, whether it's a free agent, rookie, if Drew Lock's going to play, it's going to be because he was better than them. He out-earned them.
What's the single season NFL record for interceptions thrown? Because if they sign Ryan Fitzpatrick and pair him with Drew Lock, they would shatter that mark more than likely. So it's Drew and a young guy, or it's a no doubt better veteran. And the no doubt better veteran, I mean, really, realistically, it's either Aaron or Russell Wilson. You mentioned that in 2020, his only unfettered shot, which is absolutely true. Last year wasn't, and 2019 wasn't, so by default it was 2020. But that new offensive coordinator, amid the pandemic, amid all the other lack of practices, lack of reps, that OC was Pat Shurmur. I can't underscore that enough. It's not like an innovator was coming in like the next Sean McVay or even Nathaniel Hackett with the creative, forward-thinking approach that matches Locke's strengths. And coming off of the Rich Scangarello brief era, that seemed to click with Drew Lock. So a lot of things worked against him that year, and he didn't make the most of it. He didn't stamp his name down as a franchise quarterback, but that was his only shot. If he gets it again under this coaching staff, I feel like personally he would make the most of it.
Again, and my grandma, my Nana, would chide me for using double negatives, but Drew Lock got his shot, and he didn't leave no doubt. You got to leave no doubt, and he unfortunately couldn't do that. Mike Reno says, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Locke will flourish under this coaching staff if he is the starter, because the coaches are going to harness our skilled player strength to take pressure off the QB. hey man, that's the hope, right? And again, as I've said on this show multiple times now since the hire was made, if Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outten and I almost confused him with Clint Kubiak are the coaches that you're telling everybody they are, then yeah, you should be optimistic that if and when the Broncos turn to Lock, he'll flourish. I'm optimistic on that front, but none of us have a crystal ball.
And the good thing is this time, though, I mean, if you're not the biggest Drew Lock proponent, if he does fall on his face, it's because he's not good enough, and we know that definitively. Because the coaching staff, you just laid it out. Getting Hackett, getting Outten, and getting Clint Kubiak, the Vikings' former OC as quarterbacks coach, is a major coup and a major feather in George Payton's and Nathaniel Hackett's cap. If Drew Lock can't cut it with this weaponry he has in his fourth season, in a contract year, new coaching staff, then he's just not good enough. Point blank, period.
Joshua Mize throwing down some stars. Appreciate that, my friend. Thank you. We'll circle and see if we maybe hit goal at the end of the show here tonight for the month of February. Teresa says on Facebook, I've seen a lot about different quarterbacks available. Is there any way we could pry away Kyler Murray? Same type of ammo for Rodgers, but a younger option. Murray versus Mahomes twice a year seems awesome. Yeah, it's hard to say what to make of that situation exactly. For those of you wondering what Teresa is talking about, last week, or was it the week before, Kyler Murray, it was right after the Super Bowl. So he scrubbed any and all mention of the Cardinals off all of his social media, and then provided a couple of statements in the aftermath of that. The Cardinals had to make a statement. Long story short, he wants to get paid now. He doesn't want to wait till this time next year. But they optioned his fifth year, and they want him to play on his fifth year. He doesn't want to. He wants to get an extension now. Is it 3 straight Pro Bowls, Zach? Wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, and then 3 straight Pro Bowls, leads the Cardinals to the playoffs. Something like that anyway. He wants to get paid. I don't blame him. I'd want to get paid too. But the Cardinals, after all they went through, post Kurt Warner, after drafting Josh Rosen in the first round the year prior, and then drafting Kyler at number 1 overall the next year, they understand, does Steve Keim, the GM there, Zach, the one in the hand worth 2 in the bush philosophy. So I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to do anything and everything they can to keep him happy. So he's probably going to get paid. And I don't think he's a genuine option for this team. Probably Russell Wilson's more of an option for this team than Kyler, but we'll see.
If Arizona wants to pay him $45 a year, that's Arizona's prerogative. I wouldn't do it if I was them. He can't win the big game. I don't care about Pro Bowls. He melts down later in the season. He had an awful playoff showing, and there's the concerns that he's a finger pointer, he's immature, he's sort of a cancer for that offense in that locker room. And if you've watched sideline videos, I mean, he's very self-absorbed and very about Kyler Murray. I wouldn't trade the farm for that guy. I wouldn't set records contract-wise for that guy. Aaron and Russell Wilson are both head and shoulders above Kyler Murray as far as I'm concerned.
So my bad. For what it's worth, Kyler, Rookie of the Year in 2019, 2-time Pro Bowler, so these last 2 years Pro Bowler. All right. Jeremy, and then we got to go. He says, so, gents, here's a question. With how deep this draft class is in terms of interior D-line, offensive tackle, interior O-line, and corner, do you think we should be super aggressive with trades with teams so that we get the best players? No, I think it's the other way around. I think you should completely capitalize on any and all interest in your picks and your positions to trade back and stockpile, because it's so deep at multiple positions and several that you didn't even mention, including edge, off-ball. Trade back, stockpile picks. And that's a philosophy we know George Payton embraces. In fact, he talked about that in his first press conference, even though, if I'm not mistaken, Zach, the Broncos did not trade one time, if I remember right, in last year's draft. I think it just takes the right opportunity relative to, hey, a guy that we really love is coming up. We're in position to get him, and the phone rings, and it's the Texans, and they're like, hey, we'll give you an extra 5th-round pick if you swap us here, but that takes you out of the chance to get Quinn Miners. So multiple situations like that happened, and he said no. But this is a good draft to start saying yes.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make, is it was a pretty quiet first draft for George Payton. I feel like the second draft is going to be a lot more wild, a lot more active. I can see Peyton maybe moving back from 9 into the teens and picking up another second or third round pick. Don't forget they have 5 selections in the top 96 of the draft. That's a lot of capital, a lot of ammo. So if they move back, let's say they get, I don't know, Nakobe Dean at 15 or whatever, they might want to move back up into the first round or earlier in the second round for a quarterback, let's say, or a tackle. They have a lot of compensation they can play around with and make things happen. I feel like you're going to see Trader George come out to play next month.
Yes, indeed. Phil. Oh, sorry. Finish your thought.
No, I thought it was March already because I'm stupid, but April.
Phil says, I'm going to trust Peyton and his new staff to give us a playoff team. Hey, that's all you can do right now, my friend. Chris and Zuko, and then we got to go. Appreciate you, my friend. Up in Canada. By the way, I'm looking at it now. Shows that your jersey estimated arrival March 7th. It's on the road. It has been shipped, so it could get there sooner. But being that you are indeed north of the 49th parallel, I don't know what to expect on that front if it just takes a little bit longer to get up to you, but it should be, you'll be seeing it soon, my friend. It says, good evening, gents. As far as quarterbacks under 6 foot, how many have won a Super Bowl? I can only think of Russ. Yeah, I think Russ is the only one. Yeah, pretty sure, at least in the modern era. Yeah. That's it.
Steve Young came to mind. I feel like he was, 6'1", though? He was 6'3"? Damn.
I'll tell you right now.
He doesn't seem like he was. I feel like he was like 6'1" or 6 foot, but that's crazy.
Yeah, he was 6'2" according to Wiki. Whatever.
I don't know why I envision him smaller. Maybe it's the way he played.
But guys, we got to dip on out. Much love and respect. Appreciate you guys. Zach, if you want to do the rundown, I'll pull up Facebook.
Yes, sir. That was the Huddle Up Pod. Thank you all for tuning in with us tonight. We're back on tomorrow night, same time, same place. In the meantime, though, follow us on Twitter at Huddle Up Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. You can follow Chad on Twitter at Chad and Jensen. You can follow myself at Kelberman NFL. Follow Scott on Twitter at Scout Kennedy. If you want a hoodie like I'm wearing, a hat like Chad's wearing, go to huddleuppod.com and get yourself a piece of our merch right there. It's our little pop-up store for your shopping pleasure, huddleuppod.com. Don't forget to go to facebook.com/milehighhuddle. Hit that big blue button, become a supporter. 3 VIP shows at your fingertips. Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club, and Trickle Zone each and every week. And facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. Like that page and follow that page. Guys, please, if you haven't, go to Apple Podcasts and leave your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win maybe a hoodie, maybe a hat, maybe a coffee cup, etc. each and every month. But if you can't do those things, do these 3 things, please, guys. Subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. Helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Indeed. Scott reminding us of one other quarterback that might be around that conversation. Drew Brees won a Super Bowl, and he was listed officially as 6 foot. But if you've ever looked that dude in the eye, I'm right at 6 foot myself. And, doesn't quite seem like he reaches that, but who knows? Who cares? Shout out to these great supporters on Facebook: Jacob Foster, Phil McLaughlin, Rod Garcia, Joshua Mize, CJ Morris, Andrew Baker, Mike Reno, Michael Ronquillo, Claude Riley, T Twice, Chase Wellner, Big T, Dan Briscoe, and then our Super Chat superstars. Love you. From Colton Moore, Kevin Vinn, Ren99, Slide and Glide Bros, Nash V, Ron Galicchio, John Clay Eventing, and Chris and Zuko. And guys, good news on Facebook. Indeed, tonight we crossed the 250 goal on Facebook. So we are raffling off a jersey here in about a week's time. It's going to be a gas. Can't wait. And we'll see you tomorrow night. Don't forget, you got Broncos for breakfast tomorrow morning.
Shout out Mitchell. Fangio is gone. Locke has support. Hallelujah. Shout out Big Mel. It was personal between Vic and Drew. Yes, it was. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Have a great night. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.